it seems that the government is all-inclusive, but within the movement itself. And the Taliban are still skeptical and not very confident of giving space and share to other groups. This also means that till the caretaker time period, the Taliban would consolidate their grip on power further and also cement cohesiveness within their own group in order to overcome the frictions. And for that, I think it was not the right time for them to give share to other groups, which would make it difficult for them to have complete grip over political power and as well as across the country. So for now, this caretaker government seems to be all the former leader of the Taliban, Mullah Omar's confidence and people who were loyal to him. At the same time, it's the older generation of the Taliban, all the veterans who had a major say throughout the 21 years of the battle of the Taliban against the government and the Americans. So there is no sign of inclusivity at the moment. Also, there is no women's affairs ministry that is completely removed, and instead we have the Ministry of Vice and Virtue that has been replaced. So all I can say now is that this government, which is announced, is a complete Taliban-dominated government. This also indicates that they still want to consolidate power through this government and also want to cement their cohesiveness within the group through the government.
I want to ask you about women in just a minute, but first, is this a government that you think would be recognized by the international community? I mean, some of the members are considered terrorists by some governments, so how should international leaders read into this group?
Well, I have mentioned this before too, that one of the challenges for the Taliban is to implement Sharia and at the same time seek international recognition and legitimacy. So the Taliban need to strike a balance between these two. But for now, it seems that they have more orientation towards the implementation of their version of Islamic Sharia. That is why we see a lot of hardliners within the government now. Their main partner in this government seems to be the Haqqani network, who is still a terrorist network. And their Khalifa or head, Sirajuddin Haqqani, and as well as Khalilur Rahman Haqqani, are the people who are at the UN and as well as US blacklist. So this means that with this government, it would be very hard to get the international recognition. But we should also not forget that this is a caretaker government, which means the Taliban do want to have the reaction of the international community and the Afghan people to this caretaking government. That is why very important figures are being given smaller positions so that later on they could be promoted to the highest positions. So this is a testing time for the Taliban as well as for the international community. But overall, the international community could not be convinced with the composition and nature of the current government to be recognized.
And is there any kind of time frame that we should look for here? I mean, we're talking about eventually having a full-term government. Do you ever at any point see any women or other minority groups taking part?
Looking at the Taliban's reaction to the current demonstrations by women, it is not very encouraging, but it's discouraging the way they are managing the protests, the way they are having gunfires and somehow brutality by hitting women. It doesn't seem very friendly to me, but it's still very early to say, because this also largely depends on the reaction of the Afghans and as well as the international community, how the international community is committed to their demands over the Taliban for their recognition and legitimacy. The more they are committed, the more they do not concede, the more the Taliban would be compelled to show some concessions in order to get the legitimacy. So we can expect certain changes once the Taliban consolidate further their grip on power, which they don't have at the moment to the extent that is needed. There might be some concessions and flexibility.